I on? Yeah. I called God and got a busy signal. Later on, you can hear a song, The Lord of the Dance, which is a song I heard years ago. And when you hear it, it's a dichotomy of two things. It's like the craziness of the world, and then God, who's the Lord of the dance. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm still dancing. And I love that. When you hear that, I hope you get the same sense. I remember the first time I heard it was Easter in Unity in Houston, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I believe in God. So anyway, we've all had the experience of calling on God and getting a busy signal. That's not what happened. We all got an answer. A Course in Miracles says, all of your prayers have been answered. Maybe you weren't ready to hear the answer. All of your prayers have been stored. All your prayers are on the way. The answers are on the way. We are created in the image and likeness of God. Not these bodies, but our spirit, our soul. It is infinite, it's forever loving, and it's open all the time. And so in the Spirit of God, since we are the image and likeness of God, God uses us to answer prayers. Is that not true? I mean, I have never had sent a prayer up to God and a dove floated down and dropped a note in my hand that says, ask her out for coffee. No, it's but you have signs. And so I'm going to start off with a little story about a boy in Oklahoma. This boy in Oklahoma, at a young age, he found that he could walk on his hands as easily as he could walk on his feet. And he loved it. He could walk around the house on his hands. And then he found out he could walk up and down stairs as if he was running up and down stairs. Now, most parents would have said, hey, stop that silliness. Walk like a normal person. But his mom called the school and asked, do you have any gymnastic classes or anything, And that boy said that when he entered the gym and saw the ropes, the ladders, the bars, the trampolines, the rings, to me it would have been the ninth circle of hell. To him, looked like a combination of Disneyland and heaven. And that boy, Bart Connor, won 2 gold medals in the 1984 Olympics. He became the only American gymnast that won a gold medal in every level of national and international competition. In 1996, he married Nadia Comaneci. Some of you remember that name. And they opened up a gymnastic academy for gymnasts and also for Special Olympics. They concentrated on Special Olympics. And the two of them touched hundreds of lives, opening up. That mother was God, answering a prayer. So many times we put out a prayer and we don't even know we're praying, right? We don't know. Things are going on because we're alive. Every one of us hears God's voice every day. All the time it's coming through. A lot of times we're busy and we don't notice. Well, sometimes we hear it for an instant. A Course in Miracles calls that moment a holy instant. It's a holy instant. It's the instant where for a second you have perfect communication. You are not separate from God. You're not separate from people. You walk outside and you smell the air and you see a butterfly and you go, oh, we've all had these experiences, have we not? That's called a holy instant. Now notice, it's not called a holy minute. It's not called a holy hour. And it's not called a holy day. It's an instant. It's a moment, an instant of communication that could show up at any time, in any place. Rachel Naomi Remen, in her book, My Grandfather's Blessings, tells a story about a client that she had, Elaine. Elaine was an accomplished educator, very well known in her circle. But Elaine told her about a story, something that happened, a single incident changed her life. Many years before, Elaine was married to a man who was deeply respected by the community. The marriage looked perfect. But at home, he was physically, emotionally, and psychologically abusive. And over, he would tell her that it was because your stupidity, your ineptness that caused the abuse that I just heaped upon you. And no matter how much she tried, she couldn't do it. It was never good enough. And over time, she began to believe him. All this changed one day in a corner of New York City while they were waiting at a stoplight. They were standing at the crosswalk waiting, and she noticed a building across the street that had this exceptionally beautiful pre-war architecture. And she said, "Look, Melvin, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that building's architecture beautiful?" And thinking they were alone, he responded with absolute contempt. "You mean that one over there that looks exactly like every other building on the street?" She flushed with shame and went silent. But then a woman standing next to them, a complete stranger, turned and fixed them with a glare and said, "She's absolutely right, you know," she said in a New York accent. "That building is beautiful, and you are a horse's ass." And the light turned green. She went across the street and I never saw her again. But Elaine knew in that moment, she knew that one day she was going to divorce him. It may take time, but she knew she would do it, and she did. And she became a well-known educator later on. That woman was God answering a prayer. You know, sometimes I don't know why. I wrote this down, I don't know why, but sometimes God says to us, "Do you want the loaves and fishes answer, or do you want the plagues of Egypt answer?" Because sometimes I have to say, it looks like the plagues of Egypt coming on us. But maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's an answer. Maybe this divorce, this layoff is going to change and help me become a different person. Is this clicking here? So, of course, when I first got into enlightenment or spirituality and all, and I really wanted to become enlightened. I want, have it all together. Never have another bad day in art school because everything's perfect. And I thought, well, if I learned the secrets, I would have that. And then when I got into the Course in Miracles, I loved the Course in Miracles because to me, this is me, it felt like Jesus was sitting in the chair next to me and saying, "Jerry, let me tell you what's going on. Here's what happened with the crucifixion. Here's what happened, whatever." I felt like I was just talking to a friend. And he says in the Course in Miracles, okay, a teacher of God in A Course in Miracles is anyone who decides to teach love. That's all. You don't have to be ready. You could be in prison. You could be a serial murderer and suddenly become a teacher of God. And you change your mind. And you begin to start going, you know what? I want to change something. I want to be something else. So a teacher of God is anyone who just teaches God, teaches love. And he says in the course, sometimes a teacher of God may experience a brief experience of a direct union with God. In this world, it is almost impossible that this endure. It can perhaps be won after much devotion and dedication, and then maybe be maintained through most of a lifetime on earth. But I like this line. But it is so rare that it cannot be considered a realistic goal. If it happens, so be it. If it doesn't happen, so be it as well. I like how he says they just, maybe you're lucky. Maybe you'll 1 in 1,000, you'll get it, but don't worry about it. But the next line, do not despair then because of limitations. It is your function to escape from them, but not to be without them. If you would be heard by those who suffer, you must speak their language. If you would be a savior, you must understand what needs to be escaped. Salvation is not threatened. Salvation is not theoretical. Behold a problem, ask for the answer, and then accept the answer when it comes. Many years ago, this is like the second or third year that I was teaching weekly courses in the Course in Miracles at Unity in Houston. And one night I'm driving to my class, and I was just feeling despondent. I felt like no one knows what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about because I was trying to teach the Course in Miracles and learn it. And I don't even know if anyone cares or if it matters. I'm driving to this class, and ahead of me is this big, slow, stupid car. It's like trying to get around. And then I slow down and I realize, and I look, and there was a bumper sticker on the car. And it said, the bumper sticker said, don't quit, surrender. Don't quit, surrender. And that night in class, I surrendered. I surrendered to feeling like I don't make a difference, and I taught anyway. I surrendered to feeling like I don't know what I'm talking about, and I talked anyway. I surrendered to feeling like nobody gets my message, nobody is hearing anything, and I talked anyway. And that went on for another 21 years. I got better, but you know what? Even now, this fear, scare, I don't know. But I'm going to surrender anyway. You never know, a bumper sticker. Of Course in Miracles says, when you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you treat yourself. As you think of him, you think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will find yourself or lose yourself. Boy, the Course is teaching us that if you want to see the face of God, look at the person next to you. That's the face of God. Some of you know at one point I took a 6-month intensive spiritual program called the 6-month program. It was based on Course in Miracles principles, but it kicked butt. People came to class literally before class throwing up because it was so confronted. It was like they looked at your ego and all your stuff, and it was just all the stuff was going on. And so we would call our teachers for support. Hey, I'm going crazy here. We'd call our teachers for support. Well, on the third month of the class, they changed the rules. They said, if you really need to talk to us, call the teacher. But here's a new rule. We want you to call one of your fellow students. Call one of your fellow students. And here was the qualification. I love this. Joe Heaney was so great. Here's the qualification to determine who to call when you're having a big problem. Look among all your classmates, and the dumbest, stupidest classmate that you knew did not have a spiritual bone in his body, that's the one you call. And I was amazed when I called the dumbest guy in the class, and it was like talking to Jesus. And I called dumbest woman in the class, and it was like talking to Virgin Mary. Now, the flip side of all this is I started getting a lot of calls, too. See, my teacher, Joe, knew you don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have it handled. You just got to be open. You just got to be you. There's a poem I saw by Justin Hatchett. It's called The Ridiculous Pulse. The Ridiculous Pulse. I love this. Don't wait to become whole before you survive. Crawl out crooked. Crawl out swearing. Crawl out with yesterday still stuck in your hair. And your soul smelling faintly of burnt toast and bad decisions. The world does not need your perfect resurrection. It needs you with your cracked cup, your ruined laugh, your ridiculous pulse, still punching small holes through the dark so someone else can see the sunrise. This is why we're here, folks, to help each other. Not like Gandhi, nice stuff, but just walking in Walmart and blessing somebody as you walk by. They don't even know. They don't even know that you blessed them. Who cares? Punching holes in the darkness so someone else can see the sunrise. This is why we're here. You want an answer to God's prayer? There it is. Each of us. In senior year in high school, we had a coach, Mr. Beckwith. And I liked him because he was mean, but he was fair. Do you hear what I'm saying here? And he told us, hey, the first month, you want to get an A, you got to be able to do 50 push-ups in a row. I couldn't do 3. By the end of the month, I was doing 50. Next month, 50 push-ups and run a mile. I don't care if it takes you an hour to run the mile, but you're going to run the mile. He pushed us and stuff like that. And one Friday, we were seniors. We're tough stuff, right? We're top of the class. We're the apex predators of the high school. And one Friday, he didn't show up, and an assistant coach showed up. We were just crazy. And a sophomore class comes running by, and Larry Stevens, the clown of the class, had a football in his hand. He goes, hey, so one of the sophomores, catch! Throws the football, and the sophomore catches the ball. And Larry goes, they took our ball! And we all ran at that. We were crazy. I wasn't among the ones that were just rousing the guys, but there was a bunch of guys rousing the sophomores, and then they found a tire full of water, and we were fighting and falling in the mud, laughing. And the assistant coach was blowing the whistle. None of us listened to him. 2 guys got into a shirt ripping contest, who could rip their shirt, and the guy, nobody listened. Well, Monday comes around, and Mr. Beckwith, our teacher, is back. And he says, so, I hear you guys had a lot of fun Friday. Well, today I'm going to have fun. 50 seal claps. And seal claps were push-ups, so which you pushed off and clapped your hands. 50 seal claps. You did the 50. 50 jumping jacks. Hit the track. Come back. 50 seal claps. 50. We did that for an hour. In dirty, the wind was blowing dust. And we were doing that. We did it for an hour. We looked like coal miners. 50 kids dying. Hit to the showers. We never acted up again. Later on, Mr. Beckwith told us, this was 1968, 69, Vietnam War. And he said, this touches me. He says, I figure most of you kids are going to end up in the Army being drafted. And I felt that maybe I can get you a little bit more prepared for basic training. Basic training is going to be hard, but I was kind of hoping maybe I can get you ready. That's God talking to me. A Course in Miracles says, we all go back to heaven like the animals in Noah's Ark, 2 by 2. We don't go back to heaven alone. You don't go to heaven by sitting in a cave and oming. No. You go to heaven with another person. Why? Because that person teaches you. The person steps on your toes. The person says the wrong thing. And then you get to learn, will I respond or will I react? Will I respond or will I react? Maybe I can grow. Maybe I can learn. Many, many years ago, back during the Jurassic period, about 40-some years ago, I was living in Seattle, and I was promoted as a mortgage asset programming manager for the asset staff of the programming system. And our company serviced different banks. So we had like 10 or 15 banks, and so anyway, but I was in charge, and I was put in charge of the asset area. Now, back then, we didn't have PCs. We had those big old, I don't know if it was all the big old mainframes, those big old boxes, giant computers, And what you did as a programmer is you planned your tests for the night. You got maybe one test a day, 2 if you're lucky, mostly 1 test a day. And if it was screwed up, if you screwed it up or someone else screwed it up, you lost a day. That's how it was. And there's a lot of friction between operations and programming. Because we turn in a job to operations, we say, run it this way, and then it comes back and something goes wrong, and we say, the operator screwed up. And the operator said, no, you screwed up. You didn't write the instructions well, or your code is bad, or what. And there tended to be this friction. And when I was made manager, my bosses told me in no certain terms, don't let them get the upper hand. And a couple of times I tried to strut around, but that's not me. I was an operator for 6 years in Chicago, so I knew what it was like. So it just didn't speak with me. So me and Fred Clever was the head of operations. Sometimes we would get into an argument or fight. But anyway, one night after work, our company had a Jack and Jill softball team, men and women softball team. Women played, men had to bat opposite hand. So I had to bat lefty, and we would play against one of our banks. They had their teams, and we had fun. We just played. It was a lot of fun, and we played a good game. We went out Afterward, did a lot of beer drinking. And I come rolling home around midnight, pretty high, and go into a deep sleep. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings. Now, this is before cell phones. You know, back then, the cell phones were connected to a wall. The only cell phones you had were the cell phones in prison. If you were in a cell and you had a phone, you had a cell phone. So back then, so I'm in bed, the phone's in the living room, 6 o'clock in the morning, can only mean one thing. One of my mortgage programs is blowing up and Fred is calling. I jump out of bed and start running to the living room, and suddenly this massive leg cramp hits me. Oh, God, I remember, I'm in utter agony. It's like, make it to the couch, pick up the phone. I go, Fred, wait a minute. Put the phone down. Oh, my God. And then I looked at the phone, and I realized what Fred thinks he heard was not what he heard. What's a guy to do? I picked up the phone and I said, hello? And Fred said, well, at least one of us has their priorities straight. I never said anything. When I went back to work the next day and walked into operations, all the guys were, cool. I just went, okay. And Fred and I actually became friends. And actually, I found out how to actually become more friends with the operations staff, with my programming staff, through that, because we began talking. You want an answer to your prayers? Put out your prayer and know that it's been answered. Know the answer's on the way. The prayer could come as a mom, as a stranger on the street, as a bumper sticker. Prayer can come as a fellow student, a high school coach, or even a leg cramp. Never pass up an opportunity to heal. Never pass up an opportunity to forgive. Never pass up an opportunity to love. And never, ever pass an opportunity to be God. Bless you all. Namaste.